everyone, myself Sakshi Sharma. In this module, I'm going to talk about the potential applications of nanotechnology in space sciences and the aerospace sector. So let's move to our presentation. But before jumping right into our lecture, let's talk about the man behind this process, Richard P. Feynman. In 1999, when a poll was conducted by the physics world, Feynman made it to the top 10 highest regarded physicists, thus sharing claim with the most brilliant minds ever. He always pondered over the fact how small or how large the things could be, how smallest we can go with the special machinery and all, like writing the whole encyclopedia on the tip of the pen. Hence, nanotechnology came into play. Little do people know that Feynman was the first physicist to perceive the possibility of quantum computers. Apart from this, he was the amazing popularizer of science. He simply believed in two things, clear thinking and clear presentation. His intuitiveness and fine genius traits can teach a lot to us. Like we all know about the Feynman learning technique, which is known and used by the students worldwide. It's even acknowledged by Bill Gates. So here's some quote from him, which states as following. I don't know how to do this on a small scale in a practical way, but I do know that computing machines are very large. They fill rooms. Why can't we make them very small, make them of little wires, little elements, and by little, I mean little. Richard P. Feynman. Let's move to the next slide. So what is nanotechnology? First, let's look up to something close to us, like a glass or a smartphone. It depends on individual atoms around us and how they are put together. How different atoms are arranged can affect things like how strong or how weak it is, whether it conducts electricity or not. But when you start playing with atoms, quantum physics comes into play, which troubles us because atoms are very small. They're a million times smaller than the tip of our finger. Hence, scientists came up with new set of technology that, of course, is our nanotechnology, where nano means 1 billion. Nanometer means 1 billionth of a meter. So, nanotechnology is basically the science of manipulating atoms and molecules to make new materials and devices. It's a science which connects science with engineering. It interconnects them, and it occurs at the 1 to 100 nanometer range. 1 nanometer is 10 raised to the power minus 9 meters mathematically, or about 3 atoms long. For convention, we can take the example of a human hair, which is about 60 to 80,000 nanometers wide. So coming to or jumping to the history of nanotechnology. So let's discuss how nanotechnology prevailed through the last few decades, its historical background and some of its timelines. The first timeline is about 2000 years ago, where the sulfide nanocrystals were used by the Greeks and the Romans to dye their hair. Then about 1000 years ago, that about Middle Ages, gold nanoparticles of different sizes used to produce different colors in stained glass windows. But according to me, the most important one of them of all is 1959. The year 1959. Why I would call it important is it's the year when the Nobel Prize winner Richard P. Feynman challenged his peers to write the entire 24 volumes of Encyclopedia Britannia at the head of the pen, on the head of the pen. He was surely guessing the future, where computers were taking up the entire rooms. But it led to the coinage of nanotechnology. And when did the nanotechnology was coined? You will ask me. It led to the coinage of nanotechnology in which year? In 1974 by the Tokyo scientist Professor Norio Taniguchi. Then in 1981, IBM developed scanning tunneling microscope STM, we all know that. In 1985, buckyball scientists at Rice University and the University of Sussex developed the fullerene molecule. In 1991, carbon nanotube were discovered by S. Lejima. In 1999, nanomedicine's first nanomedicine book was given. In 2000, National Nanotechnology Initiative was launched. Let's move to the next. In this slide, we will discuss what is a nanoscale. So, to help us imagine the nanoscale, let's first take a look at the picture of Earth. So, the size of Earth, we all know that the diameter of Earth is 12.756 kilometers, which is 1.27 into 10 raised to the power 7 meters. On dividing it by 10 million, we get the size for football, which is of the diameter of 22 centimeters or 0.22 meters. On further dividing it by 1 billion, we get the size of a fullerene molecule, which is 0.7 nanometers or 0.7 into 10 raised to the power 9 meters. Now, now we are going to discuss about the applications of technology in everyday life. Now, using the new skills, nanotechnologists are beginning to do cool stuffs, like creating materials that are really good at turning the sunlight into energy, or using nanoscopically small particles to deliver anti-cancer drugs, like it's used in nanomedicine, or even turning polluted water into drinkable water. So nanotechnology has a wide range of applications, ranging from energy, medicine and drugs, nanobiology, nanodevices, optical engineering, defense security, bioengineering, cosmetics, nanofabrics, you name it, and it has it all. So now let's move to the next slide. So, anytime we talk about aerospace science and technology, miniaturization is a critical feature. Anytime we send something to near Earth orbit, it costs approximately $25,000 per kg. So if we are sending something to distant planets like Mars, it would cost 10 times more. That is $250,000 per kg. So it's important to miniaturize like instruments, sensors, whatever will constitute the load. And mostly, as we all have our energy source as solar energy, our primary source of energy, solar energy, it's ideal to have a load as low power consuming as possible. Miniaturization and low power consumptions are the two key requirements in space exploration activities. So, what does the industry want? Materials that are lighter, stronger, more durable, resistant to extreme conditions. They are also interested in materials that have unique properties. So what unique properties elements we are talking about here? We all know about the Mars Orbital Mission MOM, Mangalyaan, which use a very special type of material which is called Wolverine. It was developed in the laboratory from the sea waste. What was the special property of that material? Its special feature was that it was a self-healing material. It was very lightweight. And what do we mean by self-healing material? Self-healing, from self-healing we mean that when the spacecraft was, when some meteor showers were there, when the spacecraft was hit by some solar storm or something like that, and it damages the skin of that spacecraft. But when that spacecraft is made from that self-healing material, like a Wolverine, it could heal itself, and it could heal itself, which is a very special property of it. So now, nanotechnology may hold the key to making space flight more practical. Advancements in nanomaterial make lightweight solar sails and a cable for the space elevator possible. By significantly reducing the amount of rocket fuel required, these advances could lower the cost of reaching the orbit and traveling in space. In addition, new materials combined with nanosensors and nanorobots could improve the performance of spaceships, spacesuits, and the equipment used to explore planets and moons, making nanotechnology an important part of the final frontier. So let's move to the next slide. Nanotechnology in aerospace. We have discussed space flight and nanotechnology applications under development. Researchers are looking into the following applications of nanotechnology in space flight. Number 1. Employing materials made from carbon nanotubes to reduce the weight of spaceships like the one shown below, which retaining or even increasing the structural strength. We all have discussed in the previous slide that the industries or the researchers are in the lookout for the materials which are lightweight and which have good structural strength. So hence nanotubes, carbon nanotubes, which are catering to all these requirements. The second one is using carbon nanotubes to make the cable needed for the space elevator, a system which could significantly reduce the cost of sending material into the orbit. Noah has a nice video explaining this concept. We all know about the space elevator. It's a system which is very cost effective, and we will discuss it in the next slide in the detail about how the space elevator works and what are the drawbacks of it and how we could solve this. Now the third point is using carbon nanotubes to build lightweight solar sails that uses the pressure of the light from the sun reflecting on the mirror-like solar cell to propel a spacecraft. So what do we understand from this? That the scientists are developing lightweight solar sails जो कि आपके light जो solar light है जो sunlight है उसके through move कर सकता है आगे. Spacecraft आपके sunlight की energy को use करके आगे move कर सकता है. मतलब it's a power saving technique. It's a very power efficient technique. So this solves the problem of having to lift enough fuel. So it's a fuel efficient saving technique into the orbit to power spacecraft during interplanetary missions. So now let's move to the next slide. So in this slide we are going to discuss about what are nanotubes and what are the space elevators. So what on earth are nanotubes? Carbon nanotubes are carbon structures with special properties that make them useful in a wide range of scientific and everyday applications. Carbon nanotubes are extremely strong. A 1-inch thick rope made of carbon nanotube is 100 times stronger than steel and 1/6 the weight of the steel. So it's stronger, it's lightweight, and it has special properties. All the requirements are fulfilled which researchers and industries want. So can you imagine a building built with ropes instead of steel, or an elephant on a platform supported by CNT ropes? So now coming to what are the space elevators and how it works. A space elevator is a proposed type of a space transportation system. It's basically a space transportation system. Its main component is a ribbon-like cable encoded to the surface and extending into space. Here the surface is implied by the surface of the Earth. It is designed to permit vehicle transport along the cable from a planetary surface such as the Earth directly into space or orbit without the use of large rockets. Another feature of space elevator, another key feature, that's this miniaturization. It's also providing miniaturization. So what do we understand from this? What do we understand and how does the space elevator works? So we have a base station which is our Earth, that serves as an anchor point, a climbing mechanism, and a counterweight at the end of the table. So let's see here the diagram. We can see a base station here, which is our Earth, that serves as an anchor point, a climbing mechanism, and a counterweight at the end of the cable. The inertia of the counterweight of the rotation of the Earth would keep the cable intact. जो अर्थ का रोटेशन है वो आपके उस केबल को स्टेशनरी रखने में मदद कर रहा है, ना कि सेंट्रीफ्यूगल फोर्स. दिस हैज टू बी द पॉइंट टू बी नोटेड. Once climbing mechanism got above the geostationary orbit, it will be pulled towards the counterweight. Okay, now that's the working of it. So basically we love the idea that it's a very cost efficient technique and it is helping us to move to space without the use of a large rockets. But there are some certain drawbacks relating to this idea. The first one is, in order to remain stationary relative to the rotating Earth, the end of the elevator have to reach 35,000 kilometers into space. Ideally, it would be around 90,000 kilometers, which is like the quarter of the distance from the moon. And there are many other drawbacks too, which we will later discuss in the next slide. Let's move to the nanotechnology fueling rockets. The space elevator is a device that will dramatically reduce the cost of sending the cargo into orbit. Like any elevator, the space elevator will have a cable. However, it will need to be stronger than any existing cable, roughly 90,000 kilometers long. The space elevator cable will probably be made from carbon nanotubes. It will be anchored at the top to an asteroid called the Counterweight in orbit around the Earth, and at the bottom by an anchor station, perhaps floating in the ocean similar to a drilling rig. This device would eliminate the need to use rocket fuel and dramatically reduce the cost of sending cargo into orbit. About 95% of the weight of the space shuttle at blastoff is rocket fuel. Instead, solar cells on space elevator cars would convert light from a laser beam mounted on the anchor station into electricity to drive the car up or down the cable like a vertical monorail. Well, there are some engineering challenges, one being stringing 90,000 kilometer cable between the anchor station in ocean and the counterweight asteroid in orbit. Steps are underway to address these challenges. So what do we understand from this? We have already discussed how the space elevator works and some of its challenges which we are facing because of this. Number one challenge what we have discussed is that it has to remain stationary relative to the rotating Earth. The end of the elevator have to reach 35,000 kilometers into space. Ideally, it would be around 90,000 kilometers, which is like the quarter of the distance to the moon. Second problem with it is that the counterweight needs to be really heavyweight in order to be stationary. In order to make the space elevator stationary, it's like that harnessing an asteroid as a counterweight. We can't overlook the fact how much rocket power would be required to bring such an heavyweight asteroid as a counterweight that far into space. Such a thing doesn't exist. Thirdly, we're gonna need cable that's insanely strong, light, and flexible, which pretty much means that we are gonna need carbon nanotubes for that. Now we are going to discuss setting sail in space. When you have sent the people and cargo in orbit, once you have sent people and cargo in orbit, nanotechnology can be used to reduce the rocket fuel needed to travel to the moon or the planets. Just as sailboats are propelled by wind while on seas, spaceships can be propelled by light from the sun's reflected off solar sails while traveling to space. जैसे आपके जो जहाज होते हैं पानी वाले उनको आपकी विंड जो होती है वो मूव कराती है, इसी तरीके से हम चाहते हैं कि हमारे स्पेसशिप जो है वो आपकी सनलाइट के थ्रू आपके प्रोपेल आगे बढ़े. दैट मीन्स ओनली फ्यूल रिक्वायर्ड, जो फ्यूल की खपत हो वो सिर्फ आपके लिफ्ट ऑफ में, आपके स्पेस क्राफ्ट के लिफ्ट ऑफ, डॉकिंग और लैंडिंग, उसके लैंड होने पे ही उसके फ्यूल का खर्चा, बाकी उसके जो मूवमेंट है स्पेस में वो आपके सनलाइट के थ्रू हो सके ताकि आपके कम से कम फ्यूल की खपत हो सके, मतलब कम से कम फ्यूल वेस्टेज हो. However, solar sails will have to be very large, spreading for kilometers and very thin to keep their weight low. That's where nanotechnology enters the picture. Researchers at the universities of Texas have used nanotechnologies to make thin, lightweight sheets that may replace the polymer sheet that have been experimented with today. While there are details still to be worked out, such as how to unfurl a thin, fragile sail in orbit, along with the continual struggle to reduce weight, this method has great potential for reducing the amount of fuel needed to travel between the planets. So it's a fuel efficient technique too. So now let's move to the slide. Next slide. Building better engines. So we have sent people and cargo in space. Now how we are going to make a revolutionary engine? How we are going to make a revolution in engine technology, in manufacturing engine? For those times when spacecraft need engines, there is a type of engine called ion thrusters that uses less fuel than chemical rocket. Unlike chemical rocket, which push a spaceship by burning the fuel and expelling the resultant hot gases, ion thrusters use electricity gathered from the solar cells to generate electric fields that push ions away from the spaceship. Researchers at the University of Michigan have developed ion thrusters that uses MEMS devices to accelerate charged nanoparticles.
This nanoparticle field extraction thruster or nanofet is designed to allow it to last longer than other types of ion thrusters and allow multiple nanofets to be clustered together. This could simplify the job of spacecraft engineers by allowing the same thruster design to be used on spacecraft over many different missions just by changing the number of nanofet mounted on the spacecraft. So what do we understand from this is that there's a new type of engine being developed called the ion thrusters, जो कि बहुत ही fuel efficient technique को use कर रहा है, which is using less fuel than our traditional chemical rockets, and it's using electricity from the solar cells for the propulsion of the aircraft, as we have discussed in the previous slides. It's the same thing. So there are some researchers at the University of Michigan who have developed these thrusters, and there's also some special property of this thruster is that you can use it in a different ways and on different missions. As discussed earlier, that nanotechnology provides us with a feature that on arranging atoms on a certain way, we can change its properties. So if we arrange an atom in a certain way and then in another, the property of that material would get changed. So this provided the researchers with the opportunity or with the gift that they could just use the same material over different missions just by altering or by changing the arrangement of atoms in the material. Number of nanofets mounted on the spacecraft. This is being said in this. Now, what the well-dressed astronauts will wear. So now discuss what should be the clothing of the astronauts in such extreme space conditions. Occasionally, astronauts have to leave their spaceships, so researchers at Northeastern Universities and Rutgers University propose that we protect the astronauts by including layers of bio-nanorobots in their spacesuits. The other layer of bio-nanorobots would respond to damages to the spacesuit, for example, to seal up punctures. An inner layer of bio-nanorobots could respond if the astronaut was in trouble, for example, by providing drugs in a medical emergency. The term bio-nanorobots come from the use of biological molecules to provide portions of the robot's mechanism. For example, proteins have mechanisms to travel within a body that enable it to work as a motor for a nanorobot. These proteins could be connected to carbon nanotubes that link part of the nanorobot together. When you think about this idea is just like harnessing a horse to a cart as the nanorobot hitch a ride on the proteins. There's a lot of development work to be done, but it will be interesting to see. It will be interesting to see how these self-healing suits would turn out. So what do we understand from this is that bio-nanorobots are being used in the clothing of astronauts, and what are some special features of it is that it will respond to the damages to the space suit. But when there is some damage from the solar storm coming or from the asteroid showers, it will respond to it, and if it has self-healing properties, it could heal itself too. Further, the inner layer of bio-nanorobot has some special function too, that when in trouble, when there is some medical emergency, that's when an astronaut is dying, or when there is some cuts and accidents, space accidents happen to him, then it can provide him with medicinal drugs. It could save his life. So it's a very special feature of it. So this is being discussed here. Now let's move to the next slide. How nanotechnology can improve spaceships. Regardless of how fuel efficient propulsion systems are, it's still important to make spacecraft lightweight. Researchers are investigating nanotube composites from which they can manufacture strong and lightweight skin and structural members for the spacecraft. However, this is just the start of nanotechnology could change the way that spaceships are made. NASA has included a concept called self-healing spaceships in their 2013 nanotechnology roadmap. Just as your skin heals a small puncture, when NASA is looking to nanotechnology to provide a way for the skin and structural components of a spaceship to seal up damage from meteors that strike the spaceship. As we have discussed in the earlier slide that about the Mangalyaan, that the material used, Wolverine material, which has the self-heal properties, that on even when there is a asteroid damage or the solar wind damage to the spacecraft, it could heal itself. Um, it could heal by itself. So that's what is being taught here. So NASA is also planning for such materials to be used on its spacecraft. And in the second paragraph, it's being said that NASA is also planning to use nano sensors to improve the monitoring of spaceship systems such as a life support. The ability of nanosensors to quickly report change level of trace chemicals in air could be very useful to keeping the life support systems working correctly in a spaceship's closed system. A proper term proposal is to place nanosensors throughout the skin of a aircraft to act like nerve endings in your skin. Whenever a particular region of the spacecraft skin becomes stressed or damaged, the main computer is alerted to take action and alter the spaceship's course just as you would jerk your hand away from a hot stove. So here there are some special features of nanosensors that we use. NASA is employing these nanosensors all over its spaceship, just like the nerve endings. Whenever we touch something hot or cold, our hand just there's a reflex action, and we just move away our hand. Similarly, with the similar idea, NASA is also planning to employ nanosensors all over the spacecraft. Whenever there is some damage or some accident happening to the skin of the spacecraft, it will just change its route, or it will just damage control mechanism or survival mode. It will just uh, use up its survival mode, or it can take action in a better way. So accordingly, so nanosensors were used for that, just like the nerve endings of our skin. Whenever something cauterized, eyes just immediately gets closed because of the reflex action. Similarly, whenever there is some accident going on in the on the ship due to some interplanetary objects or whatever solar winds, nanosensors could sense that and could take the required actions to save the spacecraft and to save the mission. So now let's move to the next slide. Here we're going to discuss about some of the pros and the cons of the nanotechnology. So coming to the pros, miniaturization has obvious advantages in terms of reducing the weight of the cables and thus the overall weight of the aircraft. It helps in reducing the fuel costs. The huge number of cables installed in modern military aircraft can have a significant impact on its weight. Lightweight, durable, and strong materials is being provided by nanotechnology to us. So what is that? Nanotechnology is a really powerful tech which is helping us to do stuff we couldn't even dream of few years ago. But because nanotechnology is so powerful, we need to be very careful with it. Just in case we ended up causing more problems, then we are able to solve with it. The last thing we want to do is to make better solar cells that destroys the environment. What if we design more efficient water filters that happens to cause more pollution? More dreadful ones are that the effects of nanomedicines, the side effects of nanomedicine. What will happen if we want to cure the cancer drugs? We are providing cancer drugs, and in the process of doing so, we poison the patient. There's a side effect to that patient, which leads to a death. So further, let's discuss some of its cons in detail. Nanoparticles can get into the body through the skin, lungs, and digestive system, thus creating free radicals that can cause cell damage. Once nanoparticles are in the bloodstream, they will be able to cross the blood-brain barrier. The most dangerous nano application used for military purposes is a nanobomb that contain engineered self-multiplying deadly viruses that can continue to wipe out a community, country, or even a civilization. So it's a very dangerous tech. We have to handle it responsibly, we can say. That's why scientists and others are working hard to develop and use nanotechnology responsibly or in a better way. But it isn't just down to nanotechnologists. It's something everyone has to be a part of. because at the end of the day, it's up to us to decide whether or how much we want nanotechnology enabled products and what we are willing to put up to get them, what we are willing to sacrifice or what we are willing to put up with it to get such nanotechnology enabled products, such brilliant science, such brilliant technology. So let's move to the next slide. So what's the future scope of nanotechnology? Even though nanotechnology is a fairly new idea, it has incredible potential and is a really exciting area to be involved in. Many of the applications discussed here are speculative to say the least. However, they do appear to violate the laws of physics. The time to nanotechnology will be measured in decades, not years, while a few applications will become feasible in the next few years. The time to nanotechnology is very sensitive to the level of effort expended. Resources allocated to developing nanotechnology are likely to be richly rewarded, particularly in the long term. In recent years, every country is showing a lot of interest regarding the space exploration programs, and hence let's expect a faster growth of nanotechnology in the aerospace application. With this, we come to the end of nanotechnology. It has been a great experience to deliver this presentation to you all. Thank you for listening to me. It's been great and I enjoyed it a lot.